Good morning. I hope what I have to say comes off the way I'm thinking about it.
Hello.
My little guy's in the back. I want to bring to attention the learning curve. I've discussed before how I had anxiety growing up, and I also had lots of family and friends around me. I can count on one hand how many of them were living the godly life that we are called to. So this is a mixture for my experience, but it's different for everybody. My experience was not only did I have anxiety, but I was in my own world in many regards. And that's as a child and a young adult and moving into those early adult years where you're not middle-aged yet, but you're definitely not considered a young adult. I'm talking like the 30s. The 30s for me were the years when things started making sense. I would be sitting in church and I would be hearing sermons. Actually, I take that back. I think I was late 20s. My daughter was in kindergarten when I started going to church regularly again. I mean, I grew up going to church regularly, and then I, kind of didn't have a need for church for a period of my teen and young adult years. But then when my daughter was in kindergarten, I very distinctly remember feeling the need to be in church regularly, and then on top of that, when I would be sitting in there, the sermons just felt like they were, written to speak to me directly. And I know many people have had that experience before in their early Christian faith years, and it's really cool. That's a side note though. So here I am 20 years later, 15 years later, still feeling the weight of this learning curve that I'm talking about. What I mean by that is we lived a certain way before I knew better. I was buying things in excess. That was kind of my crutch for life. If I felt any sort of thing, I would go shopping. My husband didn't like it, by the way. Now, I'm still mostly in charge of the gathering aspect. I do the grocery shopping. I write out our budget every month. I write out the bills. I do a lot with the finances. And I remember years ago my husband saying in irritation, is it a want or a need? Because I sure was shopping a lot back then. That was a whole different time in my life, and I was a different person. But now I've learned, hey, when I'm buying something, it can be excessive. Our house has way more than we need. So I'm actually going through a period where I'm trying to work through things, because I take that scripture to heart, and I may or may not have mentioned it in a recent video, so this might be piggybacking. The scripture that says, if you want to follow me, you go and give all you own to the poor, and then follow me. And he was talking to a rich man, so we can assume that he had lots of material possessions, and many of them probably weren't necessary for daily living. So now backing up to an organizational tip, there's a question that I don't remember where it came from, but like a lot of people say, oh, am I going to use this in 5 years? What about 10 years? And they use that for their organization. I recently heard the question, when you look at an item, you ask yourself, can I live without this? There are many things we can live without, even in this society of just lots and lots of things. So you could look at probably 95% of the things in your home and decide, I can live without this. So there again, it's the learning curve. And again, there's a learning curve with everything. It's not just with organizing your house or going through the things that you probably don't need, but also in how you choose to live your days. We have routines in the morning. Some of them are good habits and some of them are bad habits. I like the habit of getting up early. I've been doing this for a while, and I like it because it gives me a chance to get my day set straight. Do I always sit down and read my Bible and pray and utilize the quiet time perfectly? Absolutely not. That's the learning curve aspect. I could feel bad about myself for not doing what I expect should be done at that point, or I can understand I'm growing towards Christ. I am trying to become more like him, as we're called to do. But it's not just in my own strength that I'm doing that, because if I did it in my own strength, I would fail every single day. There's a need for giving that over and asking God to help you in your weakness, because that's a weakness of mine. And this shopping that I was talking about, when I had any sort of emotion, that was a weakness of mine. That doesn't change who I am. It's just a habit that I was doing, and it was drawing me away from God, because when we're doing things that aren't seeking him, you're not drawing close to him, as his scripture calls us to. What we're doing when we're in these bad habits and we're blind about it, and we're not thinking about kind of how the future is going to line up if we continue in with these bad habits, those are the things that God kind of nudges your heart when your heart's ready. That's been my experience. I know there are people in the world who feel much more proactive about that, but I have taken a little bit of a passive approach to that, because I'm an overdoer and I'm a fixer. So if I'm trying to fix my salvation, I'm sinning against God. I can't take salvation into my hands. I can't take this work that he's doing into my hands. I can be present. I can participate in what he's doing in my life, but to try to take credit for what has transpired in my heart over the last 15 or so years, I can't do that, because it wouldn't be right. So with that said, the learning curve is the main encouragement that I have today, and really what it boils down to is understanding that this is such a process, and we want to do things right. There's this intention in our deep soul that knows that we're missing something by living in this world. We're missing true community with God himself. We're missing that here, because he's in us and all around us, but there are human longings that will not get met any other way. So the learning curve is simply seeking God and understanding that you're not going to be able to do it in your own strength, but understanding that it does take active participation to participate with him. It takes active participation to be in community with God. And so at the very least, understand that if your house is overwhelming you, or your lifestyle is overwhelming you, you don't have to make big changes. It can be little things as God places it on your heart, and you just allow the work to be done and participate in doing it. Have a great day.